Our topic is, our subject is, programmable logic and microcontroller. The programmable logic part is in part 1 and the microcontroller part is in part 2. And here in this session, we will have some discussion on part 2 only, that is on microcontroller only. Okay. But now there are different type of microcontrollers and we should know what a microcontroller means actually. But in our syllabus, mainly the AVR microcontroller is present. Now, what is there? You have one laboratory also, laboratory class or sessional class on microprocessor and microcontroller, but that is not in this semester. It will be the next semester. It has been designed in such a way that in this semester you'll study the theoretical part, and in the next semester you will have that particular lab or sessional class. Now, without any further introduction, let's start our discussion. Now, our chapter 1 is on the overview of a microcontroller and specifically our AVR microcontroller. Now, a microcontroller, it has two parts. There is the micro and the controller. Let's see the controller first. What do we mean by a controller? A controller means, as the name suggests, that it controls something. Okay, how it controls? It sends some bits and bytes. This bit means zeros. It is in the form of zeros and ones. It is in the form of zeros and ones. So that will be sent by the controller. Okay, and once it sends zeros and ones, some pin. Turn off your microphone. Some noise is coming. So when the controller sends some signals in the form of bits, then some motor will start, some LEDs will glow. Okay, something will happen, and it will also receive some bits through some pins. So ultimately, the controller controls something. What it controls? It controls a process. Process means a job, a task. Actually, it is a collection of job or task. For
স্যার
example, hmm,
স্যার একটু রেকর্ড করে নেবেন বা আমাদের কাউকে হোস্ট করে দেবেন, আমরা রেকর্ড করে নেব।
don't worry, the material you are seeing here, it will be circulated to you.
ওকে স্যার।
So exactly the thing that you are finding out here, I will send it to you. Okay, don't worry. But if I say anything that is not present in that slide, okay, that is a different thing. But if anything is present here in the slide, you will get it. Okay.
ওকে
So
স্যার।
now a controller controls some process. A process means a collection of job or task. For example, a cement making industry. In an industry where a cement is manufactured, manufacturing a cement means it has to follow some sequence of job, sequence of tasks. So all these jobs put together is called a process. So the controller will control the process at its various level, at its various stage. It will send different signals to different parts, different machineries, different apparatus or devices, and the device or apparatus or machinery will start doing work, and something will happen, some output will be achieved, some product will be prepared. So the controller, its task is to control a process. Okay. Now micro means when the size of the controller is very small compared to its enormous capacity, large capacity, then it is called micro. Its size is small, micro, but the capacity is not micro. Capacity is very, very high. You will feel it later in this class. Actually, here in this class, not only some theories will be there, I will give you a lot of programs. We will write lot of programs, the program will be run, and you'll see the output also. So everything will be very much practical. Okay, so I'll show you step by step how we can work with microcontroller, how we can use them. Now, before going to the microcontroller part, let's see what is the evolution or the history of the technology, how things are actually gradually being evolved. The first thing is the general purpose microprocessor that came. Okay. Then came the bit slice processor, that is another development. Then came some special purpose processor. Now, under this special purpose processor, mainly there are two type of processor. These are the digital signal processor, one type, another is the microcontroller. First, I want to say something on the general purpose microprocessor. A general purpose microprocessor means it's a processor just like your 8085. It is a general purpose processor. Why we call it general purpose? Because this microprocessor is, you can do anything with that microprocessor. Only thing is that a microprocessor alone cannot do any work. You need to connect some other ICs supporting chips, other peripherals, okay? Then only a microprocessor can do its job. Just like with our brain, we cannot do anything until and unless we have some hands, some legs, some ears, nose, eyes, mouth. So all such things must be there, and then only our brain can do some job. So microprocessor is not a complete solution, rather it is very much incomplete. To make it complete, we need some accessories, some peripherals surrounding the processor chip, and then only one particular application can be built. For a microprocessor, what happens, it is very much generic. Depending on the particular job that we want to do, we have to connect particular peripheral. Okay, if our target is different, our supporting chips and peripherals will also be different. Okay, so these additional hardwares makes the microcontroller complete for a particular application. Okay, so that is our general purpose microprocessor. Now example is 8085, Intel 8085. There were many other microprocessors before that, Intel 8080, Intel 4004, many other things. But after 8085, we got 8086, 8088, 80186, 286, 386, 486, Pentium, Pentium 1, 2, 3, 4, dual core processors, core to duo processors. There are then came i3, i5, i7, i9, or many other microprocessors are also there. Okay, these are all general purpose microprocessors. Okay. Now so from that general purpose microprocessor, then a development was branched out towards a different type of processor called bit slice processor. This is the processor where actually it comes as a slice. What is a slice? Just like in the breakfast, when you take the slice of a bread, what do you do? Sometimes you are hungry, but you are not sure how much slices you can eat. So what do? You start with one slice. You eat first. If you think that you can take one more, then add one more slice. Then if you still that you are still hungry, if you think that you are still hungry, take a third slice. Okay. After when you are satisfied, then you don't take any more. Same is the concept in the field of processor also. You start with a one slice of processor. One slice means one particular chip, a group of hardware and particular software instruction that will run on that particular hardware. So it is a processor with a particular group of hardware and software instruction. That is a slice. We start with a slice. Some application is built. Now, as the size of the application becomes bigger and bigger, complex and more complex, then one processor may not handle that complexity. One processor may not handle that complexity. So what happens? Then we add one more slice. And when we add one more slice, along with some hardware is also added along with the slice, and some new software instructions are also added. I can give you one concrete example that in earlier days when there were telephones, how many digits were there in the telephone? You were not born at that time, but I personally was very much young. I found personally there was a three-digit telephone number, a three-digit telephone number. Probably some of you may have that telephone number, may inherit this from your parents. You may know that in your house also that telephone number existed that time, a three-digit telephone number. But as the demand grows from three-digit telephone number, it changed to four digits, then five digits, six digits. Nowadays, what we are getting? We are getting 10-digit telephone number, 10-digit mobile phone. Not only that, for toll-free numbers, these are much more than 10 digits. So, as the demand is increasing gradually, more and more slices of processors are being added to handle the complex situation coming due to the increased size of the numbers because of the increased demand. Okay, so gradually the more and more slices are added. So after some slices are added over some years, then the whole technology changes. So a new bit type of bit slice processor is coming, and now the new slice is capable of handling more complicated things. And again, a new slice is being added, go on adding, and that can ultimately become higher in size day by day when we add more and more slices. So it's a very cost effective solution because we need not invest too much in the beginning. Customers are paying money, and from that money, okay, the second time investment, third time investment, everything becomes possible, okay, by adding more and more slices later. So this is the concept of bit slice processor. Okay, just one example is that there are a number of slices added in the bit slice processors. With day by day, the complexity increases with the growing demand. Okay, this next thing is the special purpose processor. This is a group of processor that comes with certain facilities. Okay, these facilities are not present in a general purpose microprocessor. A general purpose microprocessor is very much open ended. We have to connect some extra peripherals and hardware to make it complete. But these special purpose processors are already complete. They contain some special hardware, they contain some special instructions. With these, we can do some job. Okay. What is your question? I cannot get it. Any question? Okay. So this special purpose processor contains some hardware, dedicated hardware. Okay. Any problem? Can you see this this slide? Any problem? Okay, no problem. Fine. So this special purpose processor is equipped with special type of hardware and software. Okay, so that we need not start writing program from the beginning. Okay, just by writing small program, we can do lot of job. Just by writing small program, we can do bigger things because the processor will take care of all the complexities. Only thing is we need to know those hardware facilities and software facilities available with that processor, and we need to know how to use them. That's all. If we know how to use them, we can use, and then our job will be done. So these chips are quite self-sufficient, not like an open-ended microprocessor. example is a digital signal processor. You now in this semester you are studying the subject digital signal processing. So in digital signal processing, there are a lot of dedicated applications like convolution, fast Fourier transform, okay, different type of Fourier transform, filtering, many other things are there. So this digital signal processor, we call it DSP processor. Digital signal processor or DSP processor, they are equipped with some special hardwares and softwares. Now, if we use them, lot of mathematical job will be carried out in a lightning fast speed. Just by writing few programs, we can do lot of convolution, lot of filtering, lot of Fourier transform, lot of things we can do just by writing small programs. Because the processor is equipped with special type of hardware and software instructions. Okay, so just one example is a Texas Instrument. There are many companies, they are having the DSP processors, but Texas Instrument is the leader still now in the field of DSP processor. Okay, so it is one chip, TMX series chip. They perform DSP operations very efficiently and very fast. Okay, that is the example. Now another type of special purpose processor is the microcontroller. That is our target of discussion. In our class, we will discuss this particular special purpose processor called microcontroller. A microcontroller is a processor, special purpose processor, which is equipped with some special hardware. Okay, it can do some signal processing job, and at that same time it can do some control operation also. It is having some inbuilt hardwares, special hardwares for performing signal processing job and control related job, and it can communicate with the external world, okay, to implement that job. Some examples are given for different type of microcontrollers. Our AVR microcontroller, note that originally our AVR was built by Atmel, the company Atmel, but nowadays this AVR microcontroller has been taken by the company Microchip. Microchip company originally they released the product PIC series of microcontroller, PIC, programmable interface controller, PIC series of microcontroller. Here one example is given, PIC 18F, 877A, many other PIC microcontrollers are there. But nowadays, okay, the PIC microchip company has taken over the Atmel microcontroller. So nowadays this AVR does not belong to Atmel, it belongs to Microchip. Not only that, 8051 microcontroller is also there, originally made by Intel. Now various companies are making 8051 also. Okay, an Arduino is not a microcontroller. It is a board where one microcontroller is present. I'll say something on Arduino later, not now. And the difference between an Arduino and a microcontroller, that also I shall say you, because that will be relevant. ARM is another type of microcontroller. Okay, there are many other microcontrollers. In your previous study of this course, I used to teach 8051 microcontroller. 8051 microcontroller, but nowadays your syllabus has been changed and you are now studying AVR microcontroller, a very new and latest type of microcontroller, and you will not get enough book. Unfortunate thing is that since it is a latest microcontroller, books are not readily available. So what program I'll write and what material I'll give you, note that all the programs will be, these are the practical programs that are personally run by me on the practical hardware kit, on the practical microcontroller. Okay, and those successful programs will be given to you, so that if you copy this program to your microcontroller, AVR microcontroller, you will see that your microcontroller will run. But how to buy a microcontroller, how to use them at your home, because nowadays the laboratories are closed, you know, in the department, you can buy your own microcontroller either by going to Chandni Chowk market, okay, in the Kolkata Chandni Chowk market, or you can buy it through Amazon, okay, or through eBay also you can buy it, or through other online sources, buy it through Element 14, through Rido Labs. There are many other companies there, so you can buy them online. So how to buy a microcontroller, how to make connection, how to use them, that everything I shall say to you, okay, later, step by step, so that if you follow my instruction, you can start running your application at your home, okay, using the microcontroller. So there are different type of microcontroller ICs. IC means, you know, integrated circuit. So one IC is a rectangular shape or square shaped, black colored chip that will contain all the internal circuitry. Millions of transistors are embedded there, and the internal circuitry will be there, that will, but just by writing program, we can develop our own application using that microcontroller IC. Okay, so this is our microcontroller. Now the question is where we can use a microcontroller. The answer is where not. A microcontroller is present in a microwave oven, in washing machine, in sewing machine, in ATM, automatic teller machine, in auto ignition system of a car, smart toy, DVD player, automobile, lot of unlimited. Everywhere you will get. So where not? So the answer is where not you will get a microcontroller. In a printer, in a digital camera, everywhere you will get a microcontroller. Okay. But before going to microcontroller, first we want to see what is the internal difference of a microcontroller and a microprocessor. Obviously, in this class, I don't want to say anything on microprocessor because you have already studied microprocessor in previous semester course. Just I want to say few things of microprocessor in just 2-3 slides, not too much, and then we'll switch over to microcontroller so that we understand the difference between a microprocessor and a microcontroller. Now in the microprocessor, actually what happens, this is the inner part of the microprocessor IC. One arithmetic and logic unit where all the arithmetic operation like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, all such arithmetic operation is carried out, as well as the logical operations are also carried out like ANDing, ORing, XORing, comparing, all such things. And some internal memory locations are there called registers. Registers are not only the memories, internal memory of the IC. Registers are something like the bubble, okay, where we can make our required cooking. Okay, just that it is the location where all the data will be processed. Some data will be stored in a register, 8-bit register. It will be taken, it will be processed, and the result will be stored in another register. And all the operation related to ALU and registers will be controlled by a control unit. Okay, and all the operation will be in synchronism with time. You know, everything in the universe runs in synchronism with time, just like our class. How long our class will extend? The unit of time to complete a class will be a period. A 1-period class, a 2-period class, a 3-period class. So the unit of time, okay, in our class is not hour, minute, second. No, hour, minute, second is not the unit of time. What is the unit of time to complete a class? It is the period. So our class may extend for 1 period, 2 period, 3 period, like that. So period is the unit of time. Similarly, the any microprocessor related job and also microcontroller related job, they will have a unit of time. This unit of time is not hour, minute, second. The unit of time will be one time period of a clock cycle of a clock. A clock is a square wave pulse, high, low, alternately it goes. So one high and one low, or one low and one high. I repeat, one high and one low, or one low and one high will constitute one clock cycle. Clear? So that is the time period of the clock. So all the operation will be in synchronism with that time period. So one job will be completed either in one time period, or two time period, or three time period, something like some amount of time period of the clock cycle. So this time period is called a T step. T step. So our job has to be completed within required number of T states or clock cycles. So a clock must be there. Now this clock may be internal to a microprocessor or external to the microprocessor. Normally our clock is connected external to the microprocessor. There are microprocessor pins and also microcontroller pins where we have to connect some external clock, some oscillator, some high low pulse, rectangular train of pulse. How this pulse is generated? It is generated by a quartz crystal. Quartz crystal. A quartz crystal, it oscillates continuously. It generates a voltage with a high low, with some additional circuitry. Okay, with the quartz crystal, a complete clock circuit is prepared, and that clock circuit is connected to the microprocessor or microcontroller pins, and then the microprocessor or microcontroller runs in synchronism with the time supplied by the rectangular pulse train. Okay, so that is this. And then the microprocessor does not have an internal memory normally, but there are exceptions also. Normally the memories are external to the microprocessor. These memories are read-only memory, or read-only memory, read-only memory means ROM, or read-write memory, RWM. RWM means read-write memory. We can read data from the memory, or we can write data into the memory. So we can erase the data. We can erase old data and we can load new data in the RWM memory. But in the ROM, normally we cannot erase data. It is protected. Okay. In a system, we need RWM and ROM both. So our memory has two parts. One is something like read-write memory. We also call
You are calling is currently busy. Please call again later.
now. Can you hear me? We are back in the session again. So let's see. So this is our now. So a memory consists of one read-write memory or RAM. Although there is a little bit difference between RWM and RAM, but mostly they are same. And ROM, read-only memory. So when we want to store some important information that should not be erased, then these are stored in our ROM, in the ROM. Just like our name, our parents' name, our home address, these are all our identity related information. If we forget our name, our parents' name, our home address, all such thing, we will lose our identity. So ROM stores all such important data. Nobody can destroy these. Nobody can change these or erase these. Okay. So and all that, and so that is the memory part. And IO port, input output port. What is a port? It is a port is a collection of pins. These are the pins available surrounding one IC, one chip. Through this group of pins, some bits and bytes are transmitted from microcontroller or microprocessor to the outside world, or from the outside world to the microprocessor or controller. So in any direction, data transfer takes place through this group of pins. So this group of pin is called a port. So effectively a port is a door or gateway or window through which data transfer takes place between a processor or controller and the external world. These are IO port called input output port. Input means data comes, signal comes from external world and is input to the processor or controller. And output means processor or controller sends the data or signal to the outside world through these pins. So input output ports. And there is a bus. A bus means what? A bunch of conductor. A bunch of conductor forms a group. So through this group of conductors, a group of zeros and ones are transmitted in any direction. So this bunch of conductor or is called a bus. So a system bus carries information through this bunch of conductor as a group. So all the system related information flows to the system bus. These are external to the microprocessor IC. We have to connect the memory and IO port, input output port to the pins of the microprocessor properly. We have to connect this external memory IC and IO port IC to the pins of the microprocessor. Then only data will be transmitted through these surrounding ICs. Now we consider our system bus. A system bus carries information, and our information can be of three types. Accordingly, our bus will be classified. One address bus, then data bus, then control bus. Now address bus carries the address of some information. What is the address? Address is the identification number of every device, every location, memory location or hardware device. Just like your name is your address, my name is my address. So if I call you by your name, then I am calling you by your address. Your roll number is your address, your name is your address. So when I call you with your particular identification number. So when I call you with that identification number or characters or whatever it may be, only one person will be selected. It will trigger only one person. Although all the persons hear the same thing, but only one person will respond. Now which person will respond? When the address called by me matches with the address of that particular person, then after such matching, the particular person will respond and all other person will remain silent. So the microprocessor or microcontroller will send the address or a group of bits and bytes. When that identification number in the form of bits and bytes are matched with the address or identification number of a particular device or a memory location or anything else, then only that thing will be selected. That thing will start responding. So that is our address bus. Note that a microprocessor or microcontroller can call other devices, okay, other system, but other devices or other system cannot call a microprocessor or a microcontroller. Okay, so that's why the address bus is always having one direction, unidirectional in nature. The address bus is unidirectional in nature. It is directed from microprocessor to the external world, from microcontroller to the external world. But the reverse direction is not possible. Okay. So address bus is always having one direction. Now control bus. Control bus is, this bus is a group of lines, conductor that will control, that will carry some control signals. These are required for proper synchronization between multiple devices. They are required for, okay, setting proper timing between data transfer of more than one devices. These are required for controlling or communicating. These are required for checking the status of one devices, status of devices. So these are the control bus. So don't think that all these lines are forming a group always. No. In some application only timing is important. In some other application only checking status is important. So don't think that the control signals will form always a single group. No, sometimes the groups will be formed, sometimes the groups will be broken. They will start working as a single conductor, as a single signal. So control bus sometimes are not bus. They are not called as a bus. Sometimes they are called control lines, because sometimes they form a group, sometimes they don't form a group, depending on the requirement. Get my point? So that is our control bus. If you have any question, any doubt, any query, feel free to ask me anytime. Anytime, feel free to ask me, feel free to interrupt me. So that is our control bus. And data bus is simple. Data bus is just required to transfer information through these lines. Okay. Now our microcontroller. Now note that in microcontroller also a simplified architecture is shown here. Some ALU is there, arithmetic and logical operation will be carried out here. Some registers are also there, but these registers are not like a normal register of a microprocessor. These registers are multifunctional in nature. They can do lot of different type of jobs. That's why these are called multifunctional registers. Then control unit. Okay, obviously there. Now there are some internal memories also in the microcontroller IC. Along with internal memory, we may connect some external memory also. We can expand the memory requirement. Okay, through system bus, that is address bus, data bus, and control bus. The external memory will be connected to the microcontroller IC. And IO ports will be there where data will be transmitted through lines parallelly or serially also. In serial transmission, through one line, data will be transmitted bit by bit, one after another. And in parallel, there are more number of lines that will carry bits simultaneously from source to destination. So they may be parallel or serial. There are timers or counters inside a microcontroller. There are many other hardwares present inside a microcontroller. In some microcontroller, there are ADC, analog to digital controller. Sorry, analog to digital converter, ADC. In some microcontroller, there are DACs, digital to analog converter, DAC. In some microcontroller, there are PLLs, phase lock loops. In some microcontroller, there are PWM, pulse width modulator. So there are many other type of special hardware they are present in the microcontroller. But don't think that in a single microcontroller all these special hardwares will be present. No. In some group of microcontroller only one type of special hardware will be there. In another type of microcontroller another type of special hardware will be there. So don't think all the special things will be present in one case, one microcontroller. No. Then they will not be called a special one. They will become a general one. So depending on our application, we have to choose a particular type of microcontroller that will contain this particular specific hardware feature. Depending on a particular application, we will just choose, okay, this thing. and then we can write a program to activate that special hardware, okay, so that our job will be done very easily. Clear? So that is our microcontroller, its internal architecture in a very simplified way. Now, when we talk about our memory, the memory is the storage. We can store data inside a memory. A memory must have an address bus and a data bus. In a memory, there are number of memory location. In one location, one data will be stored. In another location, another data will be stored. What will be the length of the data? Here, n bit data. N may be 8, n may be 16. Okay. So, an 8-bit data, 16-bit data, 32-bit data, they may be stored inside the memory location. Now, how to call a particular data? It depends where the data is located, where the data resides. So you have to call the location by its address. We have to call the data by its address, where the data is stored. The position is actually given by its address. So by throwing a proper address through the address bus, a microprocessor or a microcontroller can select a memory. How many address lines are there in an address bus? M bits in general. So the size, so how many combinations are there using M bits? 2 to the power M number of combination is possible using M number of zeros to M number of ones, M number of zeros to M number of ones. Any combination is possible. So total number of combination is 2 to the power M. So total 2 to the power M number of addresses are possible. So there are 2 to the power M number of location is there. And each location carries n bit data. So what is the size of the memory? Memory size is number of location by number of bits in a data. Number of location by means into is called a by verbally. In English, when we write 3 by 4, so by means 3 into 4 actually. The size of the room is 10 by 12. So 10 feet by 12 feet means 10 feet into 12 feet. So by means into. So memory size is 2 to the power m by n bits. So 2 to the power of m location and one location has n bits. So that is the memory size. So apart from the size of the memory, size of the address bus, size of the data bus, there is one more important thing. That is the speed of the memory or the access time. Smaller is the time to access a data stored in a memory location. Smaller is the access time, and we call that the speed of the memory is more. So smaller is the access time, higher is the memory speed. Clear? Now there are different type of memories present surrounding a microprocessor or microcontroller. One is a read-only memory where bits can be protected, stored, but cannot be erased. From accidental write or erase, it is protected. And random access memory RAM or read-write memory RWM, they are mostly same. Your bits can be erased or overwritten. Yeah. Now we want to say something on the read-only memory, where data can be stored but cannot be erased easily. So it's a non-volatile memory. Okay, the data cannot be erased, cannot go away. So volatile means when anything is volatile, it means it goes away easily. It goes away easily, but it does not go away. So it is non-volatile, non-volatile memory. Then from one-time programmable memory, one-time programmable ROM. So we can erase only one time. We can erase only one time. We can program it by blowing or retaining fuse connected to every bit. So there is a fuse. Once we blow off the fuse, the data will remain protected. Now we cannot change the data. So one option of erasing is there, only one time. These are called burning ROM. By sending a proper relatively high voltage. High voltage means of the order of 20 volt, 30 volt, 50 volt. We can destroy the fuse. And once the fuse is blown out, the data will be protected. We cannot write again. So it's one-time programmable memory, not one-time password OTP. It is one-time programmable memory. Then EEPROM, erasable programmable ROM. Here multiple erase option is there. We can write or erase multiple times. But in this technology, erasing is very slow. How we erase the data? Actually, in the IC, there is a small quartz window present. Through the quartz window, some ultraviolet ray may pass through the IC into the IC. That ultraviolet ray will impart enough energy to remove the trapped charges, inside the memory location. So all the bits will be destroyed now by the energy of the ultraviolet ray. All the bits will be destroyed now by the energy of ultraviolet ray, UV ray. So this UV radiation is used to erase chip's content. Okay, but entire content is erased. Partial erasing is not allowed. The entire content of the memory will be erased. And the erasing is slow. It may take 20 minutes also to erase all the data by exposing it to the UV ray. Okay. And another thing is it is out of board programming. Out of board programming means while erasing, we need to take out the memory EEPROM from the application circuit. Our EEPROM is connected to one application circuit, our target circuit. But during erasing, we have to take out it from the application board. And the erasing will be done in a separate programmer. And after the erasing is complete, then again we take out it from the programming board and separate programming board, and then we will connect it to the application board. So it is called out of board programming. We take it out of the application board to write or rewrite the data. So it is called out of board programming. And the required voltage for programming is quite large, more than 10 volts. Okay, one more thing before completing this, I should say one more thing. How long I can take the class today? Only 4, or you have another class after that, or no? Can I extend it little bit? তোমাদের কি আরেকটু ক্লাস নিতে পারি না, এরপরে ক্লাস আছে? হ্যালো, শুনতে পাচ্ছ নাকি?
আছে একটু পর থেকে,
কটায় আছে?
একটু দেরি।
4:30?
ধরো নিখিল স্যারের ক্লাস, মানে ইনাম স্যারের ক্লাস আছে।
ও তাহলে ঠিক আছে, তাহলে আমি আর টানবো না, আমি 4:05 মধ্যে ছেড়ে দেবো। ওকে, let's start. So that is EEPROM. So that is the concept of EEPROM, where multiple program or erase option is there, and it is possible by exposing it to the ultraviolet ray through the quartz window connected to the IC. Next is the EEPROM, EEPROM or E-square PROM. EEPROM or E-square PROM. More popularly, it is called E-square PROM. It is called electrically erasable programmable ROM. E-square. Electrically erasable programmable ROM. Here also multiple program or multiple erasing is there. But the difference is, in previous case it was a entire content was erased. You see here entire content was erased. But here not the entire content, a specific byte can be erased. Only 1 byte, 2 byte, 3 byte, that can be erased. So more flexibility is achieved here. And another flexibility in terms of ISP supported. ISP means in system programming, means while writing or rewriting or erasing, we need not take out the memory from its application board. While the memory remaining connected to its application board, we can erase the data, we can rewrite the data. So The memory is already in system. We need not take it out. So that's another flexibility. This is called ISP programming, or simply ISP, in system programming. So you will find out these ISP very often in future. Now circuitry to be incorporated to program the is into the system board. So we need not take out the memory IC from the application board or system board. So no external programming device is required. And the programming is extremely fast. But the cost per bit is higher than EEPROM. Naturally, we are getting some flexibility, some advantage. So we have to pay more money for that. Still, nowadays, the cost has dropped down drastically because of the advent of VLSI technology, very large scale integration technology for fabrication of IC. For fabrication of IC. Now, flash EEPROM or flash electrically programmable read-only memory. It's also called a flash memory. Again, multiple erasing is supported, and erasing takes less than a second. And access time of the memory is much smaller. So it's a high-speed memory. How small the access time is? 100 nanoseconds. So very small access time. Okay, nowadays even smaller is there. Access time is achieved. And erasing is applied to the entire content or to a specific block of memory, not a byte based. Not a byte based. Either some block of memory or the entire content. And again, ISP is supported. Okay, so we need not take it out of the application board. And program or cycle or erase cycle, program erase cycle is 1 lakh or more for flash and EEPROM, E square PROM, and 1000 only for EEPROM. Means you can write and rewrite how many times? 1 lakh typically. Nowadays more than 1 lakh also for flash memory and E square PROM, but only 1000 times read write is supported. Write and erase is supported for EEPROM. For EEPROM. And mask ROM, it is not user programmable. So the memory is constructed in the production level. Okay, it is manufactured in high volume, and once a bit is stored in the plant, in the root level, it is masked, means protected. So it is protected from the shop floor level of the industry. Once it is produced, nobody can erase it. It is very cheap because it's produced in high volume and it is fully protected. Nobody can erase it. Called mask ROM. Now I want to say something on the RAM or RWM. As the name suggests, bits can be erased or overwritten multiple times. A static RAM, it is static RAM means static random access memory. Your memory cell is made of flip-flops and 6 transistors are required typically, but nowadays a SRAM cell can be prepared by means of 4 transistors also. So one bit can be stored in one cell. So one cell consists of at least 4 transistors. So it is not a space saving solution. It takes more space. Just to save one bit, at least 4 transistors is required. So it cannot be used in space application, where in space application things should be very much space saving. Size should be much smaller. And one disadvantage is that the data is lost when power is off. So we have to rewrite again when the power is off. Then NVRAM, non-volatile RAM. It is an expensive thing. Here, when the power goes away, the data is not lost. Then the data will remain stored. It's extremely power efficient RAM cell. Okay, when it is built out of the CMOS, because a CMOS cell is working not in 5 volt level, it is working in a smaller voltage level. Actually, we know our power dissipation is proportional to V square, square of the voltage. It is V square by R. So smaller is the voltage, more will be the smaller will be the amount of power. Smaller is the voltage, smaller will be the amount of power consumption. So originally our logic one means 5 volt. It is a TTL logic, transistor logic. But nowadays, after the advent of CMOS logic, it is not a 5 volt. It is a some reduced voltage, 3.3 volt, 2.5 volt, 1.8 volt, 1.1 volt. These are gradually going down, and therefore the power consumption is also going down. Okay, so these are extremely power efficient SRAM cell, and it uses an internal lithium battery as a backup energy storage. So when the power goes away, the VCC pin, internal VCC pin, will not have any power, and a control circuit will continuously monitor the VCC pin. If it doesn't find any voltage at the VCC pin, automatically it will connect the lithium battery as a backup. So that lithium battery can supply the required voltage even up to 10 years to protect data. So so the control circuit connects the lithium battery when the power goes away. So with that battery, the data, how long the data can be stored? The data can be stored up to 10 years also. Such is the long storage time. Nowadays, not only 10 years, sometimes nowadays it's going above 10 years also. Because things are changing very fast day by day. Now in SRAM cell, it is a static RAM. Now DRAM is a dynamic RAM, just opposite to SRAM. In SRAM cell, there is no internal power backup. Everything is driven by external power. But in dynamic RAM, what happens? The transistor is replaced by a capacitor to a large extent. So to store 1 bit, not only a transistor, a capacitor is also there. The capacitor reduces the transistor, so the size is now less. Size is small, and a high density, it's a high density memory. Large number of bits can be stored. But to store the voltage, okay, in the capacitor must be recharged. There is a problem of leaking of the charge through the capacitor. Capacitor will discharge the charge slowly. So that compensation is required. So a periodic refreshing circuit must be there. A periodic refreshing is required to prevent leaking off from the capacitor, to prevent the data from leaking off from the capacitor. And during refreshing, so there is a momentary refreshing, then nothing. Then again, so periodically the data will be refreshed, or the voltage will be maintained by some charging circuit. And during refreshing, data cannot be accessed. But that is a very momentary thing. Very momentary thing. So dynamic RAM is also very cheap and very efficient. And it's offering high density data storage. It offers high density data storage. So these are the different type of memories available. Clear? Now I want to switch over to just another thing. I'll stop very soon. Okay. That is the memory organization actually. How the memories are connected. How the memories are connected to the CPU. CPU means the microprocessor or microcontroller. Normally microcontroller here. Now there are two type of connection possible through which a processor or controller can be connected to a memory. One type of connection is called a one method is called a Princeton architecture or von Neumann architecture, and another type of connection is the Harvard architecture. Let's see the von Neumann or Princeton architecture first. There is one address bus and one data bus. There is one address bus and one data bus. The address bus will connect to two different type of memory. One type called is a code memory or program memory. And another type of data memory is a data memory. In code memory, instructions are stored, and in data memory, data is stored. So instructions are stored in memory, program memory or code memory, and data is stored in data memory. So same address bus is connected to both the code memory and data memory. So the address bus will fetch either one instruction or a data, but not simultaneously, because it is connected to both of the memory. So either the address bus will point to a code memory, or it will point to a data memory, but not both simultaneously. Similarly, a data bus is also there that will be connected to code memory and data memory. So the data will flow either between microcontroller and data memory, or between microcontroller and code memory. But the data cannot flow simultaneously for both the type of the memories. So simultaneous fetching of code and data are not possible. So it is relatively a slow processing. But the advantage is, as there are smaller number of one set of address bus and one set of data bus only, okay, the cost of hardware connection is less. The cost of hardware connection is less. Now all our computers, our personal computer, desktop, laptop, all our desktop and laptop, they are based on this von Neumann or Princeton architecture. Okay, all our computers are based on Princeton architecture. Here only one set of address bus and one set of data bus. They are used to connect all such memories. As the clock cycle, working clock cycle, clock frequency is very high, okay, ultimately the speed is not really very much sacrificed. Speed is high because of the high clock speed supported. And the cost of the wiring is less because there is only one set of address bus and one set of data bus. So hardware cost is less. Next is the Harvard architecture. There are two sets of address bus and two sets of data bus. Now one address bus is connected to program memory or code memory to fetch instruction, and another address bus is connected to the data memory to fetch data. Okay, and similarly one data bus is there to interface with the code memory through which instruction is fetched, and another data bus is there to fetch data. So simultaneous fetching of address and data are possible here. Simultaneous fetching of address and data is possible here. Okay, so there are four sets of buses, two sets of address bus and two sets of data buses. So it supports fast processing, but it is, what happens here, more number of conductors are there. The number of conductors are large, so some cost is more, but this type of technology mainly is used in small ICs, not in bigger processor like our desktop processor or laptop processor, so motherboard, where the peripherals and memories are at long distance compared to the microprocessor. There the cost of the hardware connection really matters. There the Princeton architecture is used. But in Harvard architecture, where the size of the processor or controller is quite small and the memories are very closely attached to the processor or controller, so the length of the conductor is not large. Length of the conductor is small in a microprocessor or microcontroller board. In a microprocessor or microcontroller board, the length of the supporting conductors are less. Therefore, multiple buses are possible. The cost is not very high because of reduced length. Because of reduced length, cost is not high. গল্পটা বোঝা গেল তো কি বললাম? না বুঝতে পারলে অবশ্যই আমায় জিজ্ঞেস করবে। So that is our Newman and von Neumann architecture and register architecture. With this, I want to stop today. Tomorrow I shall take a class from 3 p.m. and Saturday also I'll take one
Sir.
more class.
স্যার এখানে এখানে স্যার এই ডেটা বাস যেটা আছে কোড মেমরি থেকে ওটা ইউনিডিরেকশনাল কেন স্যার?
তার কারণ ভেরি গুড কোশ্চেন। কারণ আমরা মাইক্রো প্রসেসর বা মাইক্রো কন্ট্রোলার কি করে, ও ইনস্ট্রাকশন গুলোকে প্রোগ্রাম মেমরি থেকে নিয়ে আসে এক্সিকিউট করবার জন্য। ও কোনো ইনস্ট্রাকশন লেখে না, ওখানে রাইট করে না। সেই জন্য ফর ফেচিং ইনস্ট্রাকশন ডেটা কামস ফ্রম দ্য প্রোগ্রাম মেমরি আর কোড মেমরি। এটা এক্সিকিউশনের জন্য আনে, নিয়ে আসে, জাস্ট কপি করে আর কি, নিয়ে আসে। কিন্তু ডেটার ক্ষেত্রে যা খুশি হতে পারে, ডেটা রিড হতে পারে, রাইট হতে পারে। সেই জন্য ডেটা বাস ডেটা মেমরির সঙ্গে যখন কানেক্টেড তখন বাই ডিরেকশনাল, যখন কোড মেমরির সাথে তখন ইউনিডিরেকশনাল। বোঝা গেল? কোড মেমরিতে আমরা আমাদের প্রোগ্রামগুলো লিখে রাখি, কিন্তু মাইক্রো কন্ট্রোলার সেটাকে নিয়ে এক্সিকিউট করে, শুধু শুধু রিড করে, ফেচ করে। সেই জন্য ওটা ইউনিডিরেকশনাল। এনি আদার কোশ্চেন? আচ্ছা, কালকে আমি 3টে থেকে ক্লাস নেব, ঠিক আছে? আর স্যাটারডেতেও আমি ক্লাস নেব একটা। স্যাটারডেতে কখন হতে পারে? স্যাটারডেতে তুমি চাইলে 12টা থেকে 1টা নিতে পারি, 12টা থেকে 1টা নিতে পারি, অথবা 1:30 থেকে 2:30টাও নিতে পারি। 3টে থেকে হবে না, কারণ 3টে থেকে আমার ওই ডিএসপির ক্লাস আছে অন্য সেকশন। তোমরা আমাকে কালকে জানিয়ে দিও তোমরা কখন করতে চাও, 12টা থেকে 1টা অথবা 1:30টা থেকে 2:30। ওকে, কালকে জানিয়ে দিও। আমি কালকে ক্লাস 3টেতে হবে, সেটার লিঙ্কটা আমি পরে পাঠিয়ে দেবো, ঠিক আছে? সো আপ টু দিস টুডে। আর চিন্তা করো না, কালকে আমি এই সপ্তাহে ক্লাস নিয়ে আমি মেটেরিয়াল সার্কুলেট করে দেবো। তোমরা ইন দ্য মিন টাইম কি করতে পারো, নেটে সার্চ করতে পারো। নেটে সার্চ করে তুমি ফ্র্যাগমেন্টেড রেজাল্ট পাবে, কোনো একটা লোকেশন থেকে সবকিছু পাবে না, ছড়িয়ে ছিটিয়ে পাবে। কিন্তু পড়তে থাকলে তুমি অনেক কিছু বুঝতে পারবে। কিন্তু এমন কোনো আনফরচুনেট থিং হচ্ছে, এমন কোনো বই নেই যাতে আমাদের এই মাইক্রো কন্ট্রোলারটা পুরোটা তোমরা পেয়ে যাবে একটা বইতে। কারণ এটা একটা খুবই অ্যাডভান্সড মাইক্রো কন্ট্রোলার, এর বই এখনো বাজারে বেরোয়নি। আমি তোমাদের যে মেটেরিয়াল দেবো, যে প্রোগ্রাম দেবো, আমরা রেজিস্টার লেভেলের প্রোগ্রাম করব, সেগুলো জানবে সবই কিন্তু আমার নিজে প্রোগ্রাম করে 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 করা আর কি। মানে আমি অনেক বছর ধরে মাইক্রো কন্ট্রোলারে প্রোগ্রাম করি এবং